I have made several videos on this channel how we might be in an AI bubble, how technology stocks are currently overvalued, and if that bubble was to just pop, then the technology companies will go down in price, will potentially also bring Bitcoin with it. Now, I've tinkered around with various AI technologies and they didn't really impress me. We've got ChatGPT. Everybody felt that ChatGPT was so revolutionary until we figured out it hallucinates, right? It gives us completely wrong data. And so when we use a software that doesn't necessarily bring us real value, where the responses are rather unreliable, then the use case is pretty narrow. Then we had image generation, right? We've got thumbnails even generated here for this channel via AI. We've got video generation, but none of those things really justify the massive AI data center spend, right? Billions and hundreds of billions of dollars even that currently get invested into AI data centers for random videos, for chats with fake data. Where is really the value? Do all of those expenses justify what we get out of that? Now, I've decided for every single month of this year to have a focus on something. So January was about co-investing, letting the premium members here co-invest with my trades. February was about learning how to stream instead of just recording videos. I did some live streams every now and then. This month, March, is all about learning AI tools. And it was the very first time I used Claude Code. Claude Code is a program that helps programmers to build programs. Now, I actually have a developer background. I've got a software engineering background. I studied business and I studied finance, but then after I graduated with that master in Hong Kong, I actually took a job in software engineering and I did some software development. Afterwards, I managed a few software developers. So I've got a good idea how complex this work is, how long things take, etc. I had a lot of ideas of building particular projects, but I never really had the time. Very often a single project can take at least a week, potentially even longer than that. And so when I used Claude Code for the first time, it really opened my eyes. What used to take weeks of work now just takes a few hours. Everybody that uses AI to program, that uses AI to build applications is now 10 times faster, easily, than the people that don't use AI. The tools are really that good right now. And so I've got this long list of applications that I always wanted to build, but never had the time for. For example, I wanted to find out how concentrated can we be with our stock investments. Do we have to buy the S&P 500? Or can we just buy the S&P 100? So let's say the top 100 stocks. Or can we just buy the S&P 10 or the S&P 5? How does actually long-term risk versus reward, so risk in terms of volatility, reward in terms of long-term performance, how does this compare if we just own parts of the S&P 500, so the top companies, versus the entire index? I always wanted to know this, but of course it takes quite a bit of data crunching, it takes quite a bit of coding if you want to have this in a particular application. So I never had the time to do this, but with AI, I had the time to do it. Well, here's another example. YouTube has this big problem with spam comments, right? So I post a video here on YouTube and then very often the bots, they post fake cryptocurrencies below the video, ask people to buy this. And it's very tedious to remove all of those comments because the names and the ticker symbols of those crypto projects change. The text, of course, of the spam comments also changes. And so doing this manually takes forever. Even using a program that's already out there isn't really efficient enough. So I always wanted to write my own YouTube spam removal tool. But again, figuring this out, how this works with the API, figuring out what algorithm to use in order to find the spam comments, figuring out how to auto-delete this, how to have this scheduled in the background, doing all of those things, that's easily, again, several days of work. Or another example, I always wanted to have my specific mind map / scheduling app. So all the apps I've tried before, I didn't really like them. I always had a few tweaks that I wanted to have a bit different. But now I built a mind mapping app together with scheduling of tasks within a few hours. Again, just using Claude. I don't even have the skills to do this visual kind of programming. So to draw things on a screen that are interactive, it takes quite a bit of JavaScript knowledge, plus then the syncing in the background with the backend, etc. So it's also rather complex once we want to have this exactly how we want. Again, this is all now super quick to do with artificial intelligence. I've just started with AI coding a few days ago and can already see myself using this pretty much every single day. There's just so much additional value to be created. Or for example, the best moving averages, right? This trading strategy I always talk about here on this channel. I have this manually backtested via Microsoft Excel. Why not just build an application where we can just select the individual assets, where we can then select, I want to backtest the simple moving average or the exponential moving average or the relative strength indicator or anything else, and then have the application crunch the numbers automatically and then compare the different durations, compare the different parameters, compare how the rolling performance over time works, compare how this works across assets and across different markets, have all of those comparisons automatically done. Doing this in Microsoft Excel would be an absolute nightmare. Doing this programmatically for a web application would take several weeks. But again, I do believe with Claude Code, I can probably pull this off in a day or two. I've got so many ideas. I've got ideas of trading bots, right? Front running bots, for example, when we've got an approval transaction on chain, we could very quickly short that asset on perpetual futures. There's all kinds of ideas that I want to realize that I haven't yet realized, but that I will make happen this month. I'll just dive deeper down the rabbit hole. But all of this has finally convinced me that maybe we are not yet in an AI bubble. Maybe the value creation will catch up. And it's not just the developers that might lose their job, because that's the secondary effect here, right? There's not much more output. You can just, even with very little knowledge, create new applications that will be useful to any business. So obviously there's increased productivity, there's going to be an explosion of new software, but also we will need less software developers. It's kind of comparable to, say, the farming industry, right? We need way less farmers now than we used to, say, 100 years ago. The job is not going to disappear completely, but the new openings are probably going to shrink massively. Really, my estimate is that the average software developer will get at least 5 times, potentially 10 times more productive using artificial intelligence. So we only need maybe 20% of the existing software engineers, and they don't even have to be that technical. They need to have more soft skills. They need to have more product skills. They don't need to know every single function of every single stack. They don't even need to know what kind of stack is the best. They might just query the artificial intelligence. I have done years of manual coding, and all of those skills are pretty much useless now. And so the spend in artificial intelligence suddenly makes sense. I did spend some money on those AI tools, right? You have to buy some tokens. I spent roughly $30 doing those 3 applications. But if I had just programmed one of those applications, or if I paid a software developer to program one of those applications, a very efficient one, I would have spent thousands of dollars. AI is really becoming that good now. I really had my aha moment. And I do believe that there's a very good chance that the vast majority of office worker jobs will get rationalized away. They will get automated away. Because here's the thing, it might have just started with software development, but we have now got artificial intelligence that can use the computer independently. So we can install an AI agent, something like Claude bot, on another computer, and that computer can read the screen and do everything. We just chat with that computer. The same way we would chat, say, with a remote worker. So if you've got, say, a remote marketing worker, right? Somebody that knows about SEM, search engine marketing, or that knows how to build marketing campaigns on, say, Facebook or Instagram. We've got that remote worker. That kind of remote worker might also lose its job. Or at least you might only need one of those people for 5 that we currently have. Because AI has already progressed enough to fulfill all of those steps. So it can create the ad copy, it can then go to facebook.com, create an account, a business account, it can then fill in all the details, it can then set the pricing, it can run the campaign. And yes, we will still need a human to verify everything, but all of those manual steps that you needed before, where you had to browse through the UI, where you had to upload your copy, where you had to do all of those things, this is now all done already automatically. Not many people do it yet automatically, but it is already possible. There is Claude Code, but there's also now Claude Cowork. And that's doing exactly the usage of a computer remotely. Now, I've personally not yet used Claude Cowork in detail, but I'm also planning to do this month. I do think that it does make sense to dive deeper into AI now, not to just use Gemini or ChatGPT, but actually look at all the automation tools. There's just so much happening right now, and software developers already have a hard time getting jobs. I think that the same will happen for the accountants of this world or for the marketing people of this world in just a few years. And that is what might very well justify all of this spending on those data centers. We'll just automate away a lot of the jobs right now. All of those big office towers, they become half empty. Of course, what kind of societal impact this will have, nobody knows. But what I know for myself is that at least I want to be among the top 20% that will have the 5x output and not among the bottom 80% that still do everything manually. It does make sense to get into those technologies early. And I believe we aren't necessarily that early anymore. The adoption curve hasn't really yet accelerated. The technological progress, though, definitely is accelerating very, very quickly. I'm going to show the results of my AI coding work over here on this channel as well. For example, the stock concentration game, right? Should we own just 1 or 2 or 3 S&P 500 stocks, or maybe 20 or maybe 100? The results of that will be shown here as well. I've already published this to the premium members, but in a few days, maybe weeks, I'll publish this here as well. I will share the learnings that are related to investing directly here on this channel as well. If it's your very first time here, feel free to give this a like. It helps the channel grow. Feel free to also check out the playlist. There's an entire playlist with direct talks like this available here on the channel. Just search for Mindset and Strategy. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Cheers.